Let's talk about drones. Big news on drones, a lot going on with drones. The first thing I want to talk about is that the United States has formally confirmed for the first time that indeed it is true. The United States has killed 4 American citizens in Yemen and in Pakistan outside of areas of active hostilities. This acknowledgement came in a letter that Attorney General Eric Holder wrote. The letter, I looked it over today. It's dated May 22nd, 2013. Who was killed? Well, there are 4 individuals. Number 1, the letter says Anwar al-Awlaki was targeted and killed. And then it goes on to say, and the language here is interesting, that the U.S. government is aware of 3 others who were not specifically targeted by the U.S. but were killed and were U.S. citizens. That is Samir Khan, Abdul al-Rahman, who is the son of Anwar al-Awlaki, and Jude Muhammad. Again, not specifically targeted by the U.S., but killed by the U.S. Let's look at this from a couple different angles. Number 1, this is couched as, in the letter, listen, there are people who commit violence against the U.S. from abroad. There are people who commit violence against the U.S. in the U.S. They may be U.S. citizens and they may not be. And being a U.S. citizen, if you are doing bad things, doesn't make you immune from being targeted based on a number of precedents that date back to World War II, Supreme Court decisions. That's just the way it is. Now, the problem is that there are a lot of questions around these specific assassinations, and I encourage you to actually look at Jeremy Scahill's book, Dirty Wars, The World is a Battlefield, because he talks specifically about a lot of these individuals, including Abdul al-Rahman, the son of the 16-year-old Denver-born son of Anwar al-Awlaki. Now, Anwar al-Awlaki, first of all, was never indicted or tried in any way. It was basically all happening through the media. There was no due process, even if you believe that there was evidence. When it comes to Jude Muhammad, a grand jury tried to get an indictment on Jude Muhammad. So there was at least some inkling of due process, at least at the face of it there. Samir Khan from North Carolina, he was killed with Anwar al-Awlaki. A grand jury was actually convened, and they did not return an indictment because there was not enough evidence to indict him, according to Jeremy Scahill. The family was told there were absolutely no criminal charges pending here. And then we have the story of 16-year-old Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, killed 2 weeks after his father, sitting there having dinner with his cousins. And remember, we were told he was not specifically targeted. He was not specifically targeted, but he was killed. So what does this mean? It could mean that it was part of a signature strike, right? This kind of pre-crime style killing, military-aged males in certain areas. The deaths show up as killing a terrorist or killing militants, even though we know that oftentimes that is not the case. That's one possibility. It's just very hard for me to believe that it's a coincidence that 2 weeks after his father is killed, the son was killed, not targeted by a drone strike. Truly a coincidence. And there are some statements that he was part of at an Al-Qaeda meeting of some kind. It's not substantiated. Even if this is true, right? Even if all of these individual stories and there's justifications here are true, do you believe, Lewis, that this is good policy or that this is going to be self-destructive policy for the U.S.?
Definitely self-destructive policy.
Natan?
Well, I mean, the whole point of Obama's speech was to say that, we all understand that there are potential policy backlashes that will hurt U.S. interests in the medium and long term if they continue to do what they're doing, which is why we need some new rules, including only doing this with very stringent conditions attached. Namely, you can't arrest a person and you can't actually stop an imminent attack from occurring unless you target these people in this way. So
yeah,
if that's followed and there's an appropriate check and balance, it's certainly within the laws. You can say that they shouldn't do this at all in any circumstance, but I think we can easily come up with a case where we would all agree they should do it.
We can all come up with those cases. We can all come up with cases where even though we're against the death penalty in principle, we could feel because of a number of different reasons that in this particular case it would be justified.
No, that's different.
We're really talking, though, Natan, about whether not if is it currently legal by the letter of the law, which has been put in place by these same administrations who want to use these techniques, but more about whether it is really going to be positive policy for the U.S. going forward.
Well, I just think it's very unfair the way, in this case, a lot of the so-called left talks about this, because either you're against it or you're for it, but you think it should only be used in certain circumstances with checks and balances. If you say that they shouldn't do this on general principle, then that's your position. But if you don't say that, then the onus is on all of us to come up with what conditions we're comfortable with.